You're watching the Tesla Life with your host, Mark Codland.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tesla Life number 256. Here we are on the first day of June. Can you believe it's June already? Wow. Fantastic.
Time flies.
And a quick shout out to Lee Moon, who we sometimes forget in the bumper for his music that we use, not only at the end, but at the beginning, as you just heard. So thanks again, Lee. So welcome to the show. Got a bunch of news stories that happened this week that we're going to go through. But first, joined by my co-hosts, we have Patrick, who's joining us from the West Coast. How are you today, sir?
Hello, I'm good. It's the first of the month, so I'm collecting all my battery degradation data and all my solar data to put it in my spreadsheets because I love spreadsheets. Print them out, use them as bed sheets.
He's a poet and he don't know it.
Oh, that's weird. I can't take credit for that one.
I was going to break into the first of the month, but
good times.
And speaking of that person, that's Mr. Casey Green joining us from the DC area. How are you today, sir?
doing pretty well. It's a little bit warm today, scraping at 90 Fahrenheit, and found a deal on the EcoFlow Delta kit at Costco. So if you're a Costco member and you need a battery backup, maybe some solar panels, portable. Not a sponsored at all. It's just like a really good deal.
No, it's not sponsored. Trust me.
That's right.
He doesn't even have YouTube sponsors turned on, let alone getting some outside sponsors.
Right, yes. Who's this show brought to you by? The three of us.
The three of us.
That's
Exactly.
right. That's who it's brought to you by. Absolutely. Every week. 256 shows. It's sponsored by the three of us. Very good. Very good.
Yeah. They said don't go.
So what we're going to do today, kind of a special day for me, is that it's now been just over 4 years since I picked up my Model 3. And that was as of yesterday. 4 years ago yesterday, picked it up at the International Center in Mississauga, Ontario. Stood in line with, it felt like 500 people picking theirs up.
The biggest mistake of your life, right? You regret it to this day. Is that true?
Yeah, that's why I'm involved in a podcast now for 256 episodes, because it was the worst mistake I've ever made. Boy, am I a glutton for punishment. No. It's the best decision I ever made. Most fantastic car I've ever owned. Obviously I've come off a warranty. That happened about 3.5 years into my 4-year warranty based on the number of kilometers traveled. I'm sitting around 94,000 kilometers over those 4 years. So I can see Patrick working out the
that's about 60,000 miles. I'm just guessing.
Yep, it's about there. 1.6 kilometers per mile. So it's been quite a ride. Had it all this time. I've done numerous trips, supercharging adventures across the continent. One trip all the way across the continent, and it's been. I've had a couple of warranty issues. I've had a headlight repaired or replaced because a filament or something went out in one of the lights. I've had a door hinge replaced because it started to get squeaky. And beyond those two items, that's it for warranty, really. I've had a brake cleaning job since the vehicle came out of warranty. Again, normal maintenance you have to do with any car. But that's really the car has cost me windshield wiper fluid and the one brake cleaning in the 4 years that I've owned it. So it's been very good maintenance wise, hasn't cost me much there. And of course, with $2 a liter fuel here in Canada currently, can't complain about filling up that electron tank It
That's right.
it is a huge benefit to be driving electric, especially over the past 3 months. So it was even good before that, but now it's just fantastic. Like it's such a huge difference. So
Right. Yeah, I first drove electric in 2007, and then we had the gas prices spike in 2008, and I was like, "Yeah, genius move, woohoo!" And yeah, so now everybody driving electric gets that same experience of gas prices have gone crazy, and you're like, "They have? Oh,
Yeah, people start talking about gas prices. I'm like, is that high? And not lately, but typically when they talk to me about gas prices, it's either they found an awesome deal or because the prices are ridiculously high. And right
right,
now it's not hard to figure out why they're talking about gas prices.
Yeah,
right." And yeah, you
absolutely.
just don't have that day-to-day context to know if it's okay. Did it just go up a quarter or down a quarter? I don't know. I don't care.
Right, that part.
So,
Not
Mark,
personally, anyway.
you probably have to have your rear camera cable replaced at some point, right?
Yeah, I've that loops into one of our stories today, but I've got the rear camera is on a warranty call. Don't have to do anything yet because they don't have the parts yet. So just waiting until the parts come and Tesla alerts me to that. So
Right.
correct.
Yeah,
That is
I think they
something
do
that
have
will
a
be
few.
covered.
I think they do have a few parts, but they're keeping those for the ones that actually break instead of
Right.
just replacing them, preemptively like they would if they could get if we weren't having this shortage of everything.
Exactly. And in the comments, Derek Ludwig is about to hit 4 years with his in August. So his Model 3 is coming up to the 4-year anniversary as well. Congratulations, Derek. Would love to hear about your experience as well. Maybe we could do that sometime.
I want to say that
there's some of it.
So I want to say that the 4-year-old Model 3 had a lot less issues than the 4-year-old Fabergé egg.
Yeah, there's a lot more to go wrong with an X than there is in a 3. That's for sure. There's a lot more automated systems, a lot more things that could need adjustment, definitely.
So
I've been pretty lucky with both. We have a 3 and an X, and I did have that coolant failure recently with the X, which was kind of a pain.
Oh, yes.
But other than that, just little things. There was one time one of the Falcon Wing doors wouldn't open, and so mobile service just disconnected the 12-volt battery after trying it a couple things. Waited a little bit, reconnected it, and things worked fine. So that was the fix.
So with the coolant, it was the day before you were going into service. How much did they end up? Can I ask how much they ended up charging?
I think it was $1,400 when it was all said and done.
But it was
I had
still
a bunch of
lower
little
than
stuff done while I was
other
there.
people, right?
I don't know what other people were paying for theirs. I don't know.
Because we were talking. I don't know if it was on the show or after the show. Where you were afraid that they'd try to hit you with a $5,000 bill.
Oh yeah, and it wasn't under warranty. The batteries are warranted, but this is the coolant system for the batteries, and that's not warranted.
Somehow it doesn't count.
Yeah, I'm like, well, it's kind of the batteries sort of need that, but that argument didn't hold weight. So yeah. But,
and Derek, if we can ask, what is the mileage on your Model 3? Interested to see that.
Yeah, all of ours are long boys. Mine's pushing 100K, and I'm sure yours are over that, aren't they, Patrick?
No, I don't drive much at all. So our 3 only has 19,000 miles on it, and my 2016 X only has, let me look, scroll, 45,000.
Wow.
45,000 miles.
Yeah,
okay.
this is where I work. So
right.
If I get a break, I'm going for a walk.
Man, that morning commute is a killer, I bet.
Yes. I'm glad I don't work at Tesla because Musk just put the kibosh on working from home.
Right, that part. And then he said, what he said, pretending to work. I was like, oh my goodness,
right?
This dude.
Yeah, dialing in. Well, okay, so this was directed at execs at Tesla. I mean, they've got people that are there on the factory 40 plus hours a week, and then you have someone who's paid 200 plus stock options and getting the big bucks, and they're going to phone it in. So I kind of see his point.
Yeah, but he has a way of presenting himself without considering his words first, and
Well, there's no ambiguity in the message.
There is that. There is
Work
that.
or walk.
Well, there's that, but I mean, it doesn't mean that his people are lazy. I mean, even if you found the one that is lazy, it doesn't mean that the rest of them are. Among other things, he just blurts out without consideration.
We're off
And
topic
thanks
of Mark
to Derek.
Starr.
Derek's just over
We are.
50,000 miles.
Thank gum.
Very good. All right. Well, enough of that. I expect the Model 3 to keep going. I've got hopes that this vehicle is going to be at least a 10-year vehicle for me. So we will see if I continue putting mileage on it as I have. It's more than the average mileage on a vehicle in Canada or the United States. So we will see if I keep putting these miles on and what my adventures will be now that the vehicle is out of warranty completely. It'll be interesting to see. Well, not completely. Obviously, the battery pack's still covered at this point. But now that normal maintenance will come into play, we'll have to see if it differs from a regular car or if we see any difference. So we'll definitely be tracking that and reporting on that as time goes along. Next, wanted to touch on the story about Tesla reaching out to its Texas owners of Powerwall and wanting them to be vocal about how the Powerwall can be of benefit to the ERCOT Grid, ERCOT, which is the Texas grid. Basically, there are three grids. There are three grids in the U.S. There's a Texas, and then there's an East and a West. But the Texas grid has, of course, seen issues during last year with the ice storm. They've had some brownout problems as well previous to that. But what Tesla is doing is they're trying to start to work their way in to the Texas grid in order for them to do a few different things. One of them, I believe, is going to be auto bidder. They're going to want to be involved in the buying and selling of energy on that grid with the help of people's power walls, with the help maybe in the future of people's cars as those million-mile batteries start to come out. So I believe they're starting to get into position where they want to have that ability, similar to what they've done in Great Britain and some other European countries. Vermont. So I believe that is the start of that operation now. And of course, they've done a couple of small scale tests in Texas where they have monitored people with power walls, and they've shown how they can collect energy when energy is cheap. And they have the ability, of course, to store that energy and then disperse it within microseconds when the grid requires it from others in the neighborhood. So that type of operation they've been working on with some of their customers currently, but I think they're going to want to start moving into a larger test than that. And you can see that some of this has the overtones that they're looking for larger approvals, maybe to get, you know, not just a few dozen people involved with the program, but hundreds of thousands to start to create that virtual power plant that we've heard about previously in some other areas of the country. So we'll have to see if the the Texas grid group is more attuned to listening to what Tesla has to bring to the table because it could benefit them in a number of ways, or if they're going to be kind of like the Automotive Dealers Association of Texas that are protective and want to put up a walled garden around what they have to offer and not allow Tesla to come in and innovate. So there's going to be some interesting pieces of information and news that come out of this as time goes along. But what do you guys think about this? Is that about surmise what you see happening in these first few bits of information coming out on this?
It'd be smart to take them up on this, especially since their whole reason for having a Texas grid was not to have the government looking over them. But that's the same crap their politicians say about how they want small government, and then they try to control you with their small government. So we'll see how it actually plays out. But given that there are very public failures several times over the last 10 years, they would be smart to accept this free handout to make it look like they were partners in the situation of taking care of their customers and their constituents.
Yeah, the Texas grid has been the most fragile one in the U.S., and it's had failures in the winter and in the summer.
Twice.
So,
Recently.
Yes, they've got to do something. And this doesn't cost them any infrastructure or other things that could bite into their profits, which is what they were going after, why they were making it not weather resistant in the first place, is so they could squeeze every penny of profit out of it at the expense of reliability for their customers. This allows them to improve their reliability without a big upfront cost. So they would be stupid, in my opinion, not to do it. I participate in my local utilities virtual power plant, and the cool thing is they pay us $20 a month every month, whether or not they use it, and that's a pretty sweet deal. And Massachusetts has one that's even better than that. They I don't remember how much they got paid, but it was like $500 a year, so an even better deal. So it doesn't look like the people that participate in this are going to get anything more than the $40 gift certificate for Tesla, but that's okay. If I mean, like right now, as we speak, my house is running on batteries, and even though the sun is shining, that sun is going into the grid. Why? Because this is peak hours. We're at peak from 3 till 6. So this at my local time zone, it's 4 o'clock right now. So that means that I'm running on battery power and feeding the grid during peak while everybody's running their air conditioners. It's a hot day. I would be running my AC, except it's busted. So we're getting that fixed this week. And so I'm a little sweaty here. But yeah, it's just if you want to help make the grid greener, and during peak is when they're most likely to run peaker generation, and that's the dirtiest stuff that we have on the grid. So I'm more than happy to send my solar into the grid during peak hours if that means they're not going to run some diesel generator somewhere. Why? Because I want a future free from fossil fuels.
You knew he was going to work it into it somehow. And he got it in early. Congratulations, Patrick. Gets it in there right away. Yeah, so it's an evolving story, and Tesla's going to be doing this everywhere. Like, this is not going to be ending with Texas. It's going to be wherever they have the opportunity to bring this online. And if and when, most likely when, the 1 million mile battery comes out, I think there's going to be a huge push on this, because they're going to basically, anyone with a car is going to have a vehicle that is, in a sense, 6 or more Powerwalls sitting in their driveway, just ready to be used. So that type of power is going to be extremely useful to the utilities, especially if it's 3 or 4 years down the road, when the number of Teslas sold in North America has also gone up a number of fold times.
So the app hackers have found some new assets regarding charging from and charging the grid, and they suspect that it could be vehicle to grid. And Musk didn't turn that down when he was talking about the 4680 cars. And we already know the Cybertruck has power export.
Right. Yeah,
So
it's no surprise. Customers have been asking for this for a long time. And like Mark said, it doesn't make sense until we get a more robust battery. Right now, if you have degradation every month and it reduces your range, you don't want to be supplying the grid on a daily basis. That's just going to hurt your range. But once we have a 100-year battery, go for it.
Yep. Although I would like the option to do my house, get 2 Powerwalls and then just run the rest from the car. But they would rather me buy 10 Powerwalls. So.
Exactly. So we will keep an eye on that, and I'm sure news will continue to flow on that front. Another note, Tesla in 2021, as we've known, there's been major supply issues for Tesla, but beyond Tesla, the other automakers have really suffered. A number of plants have even shut down, plants. There's been a whole bunch of issues when it comes to parts and producing vehicles. And over the period of 2021, Tesla, who has scrambled certainly a lot more than some of these other traditional automakers, have managed to push out vehicles almost at record pace. Until recently, they have been on record pace still. But what this report from Fortune 500 listing shows is that Tesla, over the period of 2021, has moved up 35 basis points in the list for profitable companies. So it's now moved into a 65th position on the list of 500 companies, and just in 2021 they jumped by 35 places. So they are still, as we mentioned, they are able to zig and zag to get these things done so that they actually have the product to build the product. So they're getting supplies. If they don't have a certain supply, they're scrambling to get it from somebody else, or to put something else in the vehicle that will suffice and allow them to sell the vehicle, while not sacrificing what the vehicle is. So there has been this type of zig and zag that they've been doing, I would say, for the past 2 years. There's been things that have popped up all over the place. So they continue to do that, and they continue to amaze because their productivity is still at record pace or beyond. So that's part of the reason that they've moved up in these rankings, which is not a big surprise.
Right. Yeah. So this is the beauty of being vertically integrated. You are not slave to one supplier and their solution, and if they're stuck, you have nothing you can do about it. Instead, if you have multiple suppliers, you can go find new chips to meet that, and if that means you have to write new code, you have software programmers to do that, because you're not just depending on some supplier that you've outsourced everything to. This Fortune 500 list, not to be confused with the S&P 500. This is people love lists. So Fortune has this list, and it's based on revenue. So Tesla's now number 65, and that got me wondering who is on the rest of the list. So the top 10, I looked it up. It's Walmart, Amazon, Apple, CVS Health, United Health Group, ExxonMobil, boo, Berkshire Hathaway, boo, Alphabet, and then the last two are McKinsey and AmerisourceBergen, which are both, I'm going to say boo to them too. They're both drug suppliers that were implicated in the opioid crisis. So top 10, there's a few that I would like to see drop off the list completely.
Yep. Yeah. So
I'm happy to see Tesla moving up.
It's moving up quickly. So we'll have to see. 2022 is experiencing the same problems as 2021. At this point, we're not seeing a stop to supply chain issues. We're, in fact, in several places, we're seeing acceleration in it. So we'll have to see if Tesla's zig and zag can continue through 2022 and what this list looks like next year.
Right.
Also, here's a story I thought I'd bring to the group because of how it has involved Tesla, the other auto manufacturers, as well as environmental groups, are all working in tandem. And this is not in Europe, where environmental groups seem to be against Tesla. And recently, when an environmental group in Texas was against Tesla. But this one, they're all working together. And what they're doing is they're petitioning the Biden administration about charging infrastructure for medium and heavy duty trucking. They're looking to some of this infrastructure bill that was passed. They're looking to carve out some allocation of that in order to build specific chargers and charging infrastructure for the medium and heavy duty trucking industry. They want to see the placement of these particular charging spots connected to interstates and trucking routes. They're looking to have the Biden administration do some work on what would be best for placement, consult with the trucking industry, figure out what type of truck traffic are on certain routes, what routes should be maybe covered first. the distances between chargers, all those type of things that the early superchargers that Tesla first installed. They did a lot of work trying to figure out how they were going to cover the routes with their first superchargers. So how they did it between Los Angeles and San Francisco to start with, and then the continuing up I-5 into Oregon and into Washington. This is the beginnings of that, trying to see how they're going to handle it, because there was a huge chunk of change that was allocated to charging infrastructure for the EVs that was passed in that bill recently, that they want to make sure that the allocation is there for the transportation industry, because a number of these companies believe, as Tesla does, that the trucking industry is the next to fall to electrification.
How about a couple of minds with this one? One, they're for profit. They can pay for it themselves. Two, everything in America comes on a truck, so it would be nice to give them an incentive to do the right thing. Three, the way stations and rest stops typically are owned by the state or the federal government. So yeah, they would need assistance getting stations there, because they do have a limited amount of time that they can operate actively. And so the amount of downtime, if you can reduce that, that would be good. And if the only way to do that is to be where they are, where you force them to stop for a way station, or they're already stopped for the bathroom, then perhaps they can get their charge and their 30-minute break there, rather than having to do multiple drivers, because we're in a shortage, so we can't have like 3 guys in one truck to get this thing down the road.
Yeah.
So a mixed bag for me.
But this infrastructure bill was already passed with money allocated to charging already. So
that was the other thing I was going to say, is that, since they've already got money and they are EVs, it's not going to cost us anything. So I'm not really opposed to flicking a little off to the side, because at this point you've got Superchargers, you've got Electrify America, so you've got enough basic coverage for the passenger cars, and we have zero for the trucks.
Right. So the big thing I think that the government can help with here is standardizing.
That part.
Yeah. So we have this problem in the U.S. where Tesla is different from everybody else, and this was the same problem that the earlier generation of EVs had, where GM was using induction paddles and Ford was using conductive, even though they both met the same J1772 standard. There was no connector standardized as part of that, just the electrical loads. And so now we have a much more robust standard for vehicles, although that didn't come out in time for Tesla when they started. The Roadster is different from the Model S and everything after that. So it'd be nice if they could get that figured out for trucking before the vehicles are out there in big numbers, where some of them use a different standard. And we have the same problem that Nissan has with CHAdeMO today. Eventually those stations are going to go away, and then the few Leafs that are left are going to be out of luck, or have to maybe find some adapter or just live with level 2. So yeah, I really hope that this gets figured out.
That's a good point right there. Is right now of the EV trucks we see out there, like the East Cascadia and a bunch of the Class 6s, they're using Class 5s even. They're using CCS, but sometimes you have multiple CCS ports side by side, like you find on a ship. The ships will do that for a reason, because they can actually handle that kind of load, but the truck is just doing it to speed up the charging. And then you've got the Tesla side of it again, where it wasn't out in time, so they invented their own connector that they won't let us see. That we've seen a handful of spy shots of it. Maybe they could find something a little more robust than CCS that only works on trucks, or they can all just agree to use CCS and how they want to do the multiple plugs. Because if you get there and you can take up to 4 for a long haul truck with dual trailers, that would be nice to know that, hey, there's going to be 4, they're going to be this many kilowatts, and I'm being in and out of here before my break is over. Or they'll have the custom plug that will do it, which that sort of thing will help logistics, because when you buy these things, they can last for over 20 years.
Right. And I would like to see them do a small test market, figure out, you know what, all these spots really do need to be pulled through. Duh. There's going to be little things like that where they make mistakes, and hopefully not that one. That one's pretty obvious, but you know what I mean. And like not timing it with breaks, not having it in spots where they can have amenities or maybe take a shower or a nap or get a meal or whatever. And so those are the kinds of things that if you do a small test, you have some learnings from that, then you grow it, and then you double it, and then you figure out what mistakes happen at that scale, and you learn from those again. That's what I think a government could help with.
Absolutely. Yep. So we shall see as that moves along, because we're just at the very beginning of that. So the trucking industry is just starting, and there'll definitely be more information on that story as time goes along. Next, we've got one that Casey's going to handle, and this is about FSD maybe doing some seesawing as it relates to software. This is an op-ed piece where someone with FSDBeta was trying to explain the seesaw effect that they see.
So I didn't fully read the article. I skimmed it. So for me, I skimmed it this weekend. I don't really seem to have this effect. I can say that I have seen it in other vendors' products, like where major release is bad, but the patches for the major release are good. And then I'm not really seeing that with Tesla. Like for me, they'll have a string of good ones, and then one or two bad ones, and then they'll keep on going. And bad is usually just an annoyance, not that they've ruined my car in some way, except for the one time that the air conditioner went out. In the helicopter windshield, 100-degree heat, and the black car. But they fixed that one within 2 days.
Disaster. Yeah,
it was.
Well, Casey, you've actually explained this a few times in your speaking about FSDBeta, and what they were saying is that they'll go a couple of releases in a row where things will improve, and then maybe the third one, they'll find that the road that they've taken previously and the turns that they've taken previously all of a sudden doesn't work properly.
Right.
The car does something else. And their explanation, which of course we're all on the outside, we don't know what they're actually doing, but their explanation was, is it possible that someone else's fix that was sent in to fix a problem in some other city with some other driver has somehow affected the intersection that used to work fine in their vehicle for the previous two versions? And now when the fix has gone in for that other person, now my intersection is having an issue that it didn't have before.
That certainly is a possibility, because I see that all the time. Like this last version that just came out, not 2020, FSD Beta 10.12.2 I've only driven it once, and the first day is always the worst. It was a significant departure from the almost perfect 10.11.2 that I was running. But again, that was just 1 day and 2 trips. So I'm going to get out there again later and see how it behaves. For some reason, mine, this is rather consistent. Like the first day, it'll usually not perform the way it does the rest of the time. After you let it sit overnight, it behaves like it will until the next update. Other times, it's the same way all the way through. It's just good. But I don't want to say it's bad right now, but it does seem that way sometimes to me, like where there are things that were working that are no longer working. But I don't want to say that it's necessarily a seesaw as much as it is, the black box of the neural nets. Like, you give it 180,000 new pictures like they did this last one to study, and it might come to different conclusions, whether or not it was fixing somebody else or not. They might all be worse, except that I'm hearing from the safest drivers that, I never have to touch the controls. Not in my area.
Yeah.
I often wonder if the safest drivers are all driving in, San Francisco Bay Area, which of course is heavily covered because, of course, of the people that are own the company or management of the company in that area.
Right.
Every city is going to have to build out like a California city for this to work.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Elon did say that Canada streets are different than U.S. streets somehow.
Yeah.
And then remember, we sat here and we brainstormed. The only thing we come up with is that they have KM everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
I've driven on both, and I can tell you that they're not a whole lot different.
Not to your neural network.
Right.
Yeah, you have good adaptability skills. So I did read this article. It's by Zach Shahan. I like Zach. I've actually published a couple articles on Clean Technica, but he doesn't really seem to understand neural networks. He doesn't understand AI. Just going off. I mean, I'm not trying to diss on him.
It's abstract, and it's not necessarily his field of expertise.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there was a couple of spots where he's talking about, oh, if they program for this case, it doesn't mean it's going to work for that case. Well, it's a neural net. They're training. They're not programming. Yeah. And the example that you just mentioned, Casey, where if they're trying to optimize for a certain thing, they're going to be doing that because they've gotten a lot of reports that that's not working well. So that's their new target area. They're going to change the training set. They're going to add a lot more to it. And then that's going to give you different results. So you often get a case of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And so it might break some other case, but overall, the network is going to work better. That doesn't mean for you in your place, it's going to work better. So Tesla gets the data from the entire fleet, right? And so they know where the biggest problems are. They know what needs to be fixed to make the whole thing better. And then they'll keep iterating. So every time, every release, they're getting feedback on what's not working well. They're adding training data for that. We just got it can detect open doors on cars. That's great. If you're driving, you absolutely need to know if the door is open, or you can't just have a box around the car and ignore the door and take it off. No. So,
also to know that if the door is open, somebody's likely to pop out of the car or be near it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Human nearby. Yes.
So to your point about the neural nets and the training, I think it was Holmar. Somebody pointed out that you're looking at billions of miles added per training session. So every 2 weeks, they're going through like what could be, if not the largest, one of the largest neural net training scenarios in the world. And they're doing this week after week, which is unprecedented.
Right, which is why they had to build Dojo, just so they can ingest all of that. It's a massive amount of training data. And the hardest thing is now after you get some result of that, being able to pare that down to fit on the inference engines in the vehicle. Yeah. I would not be surprised if there's yet more hardware upgrades coming.
There's that, but there's also optimizations on the existing hardware. Like this time around, they improved the perception by 2 frames per second per camera. So it's seeing 16 more frames per second around the whole vehicle. There's a turn into my house, and the car used to stop and think about it, and then go, and then stop and think about the next turn, and then go, and then jump the speed bump. Now it's a zip, zip, and then try to jump the speed bump.
It needs to slow down. I've had the same. It only happens in one spot on my drive, where it turns the corner and then it slows way down, and it's like it turned the corner and then went, "Where am I? Oh, okay, now I'll go." Yeah. So it's like when you walk through a door and go, "What I come in here for?" That seemed to be what the car was doing on this one turn.
So your car has senior moments, is what you're saying.
All of them do, yeah. Akide says rumors they're working on chip number 5. I know he's making a joke about Johnny 5. However, that we do know that computer 4 is underway, and it's probably something they're going to discuss at Autonomy Day in, what's that, August or June?
I thought it was August, but yes.
August 19th.
Yeah, we should get an update for their FSD hardware. That would be cool.
Well, I imagine that 4 is going in the Cybertruck.
Yeah, definitely, because we saw with the new cameras for 4, Panasonic or Samsung was bragging about about the contract they got with the leading manufacturer of EVs, and like everything they were describing was Tesla without calling out Tesla. The same way that Hyundai should have done with their Apple deal if they wanted to keep it.
Right.
Yeah. And so the way that it was described was you're going to need a new computer for that, and Elon already told us at AI Day original that it was underway, but there was no indication given as far as how far along they are or where it would be. But if they're going to need new cameras that need a new chip, it's probably going to be in the Cybertruck, because they said pickup truck on the cameras.
Right.
Next, let's head over to Gigafactory Shanghai, in case he's got a story for us there.
Okay, so Giga Shanghai, they we talked about this last week. They were operating in closed loop. They had added second shifts in Berlin and Fremont, and I think that Texas was starting to, or they were talking about it if they didn't already add it in Texas. Well,
added.
Yeah, so Shanghai had a second shift added, and so they're now at 95% of their original capacity before the lockdowns, and they're using old military.
No, it's 70% to their old capacity. The 95% was that they're now at 95% of locally sourced parts.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
That is cool. Oh, localization rate is 95%. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
tracking now. So they're at 70% of where they used to be, and now they're using stuff from China, which is really cool because, like we were saying earlier, you wanna vertically integrate because back when Tesla started this, they were the small fry, and so people would joke at them and give them the back burner, third shifts, B team, and now they don't need to do that because they're now big enough that these groups be like, oh, let's get their order done first before we get Lucid's orders done. But
That's right. Yeah.
it's probably a good habit to be stuck in that they're doing this, and so if something happens worldwide, each of these gigafactories will be able to operate within their own sphere, which is
And when
Right.
Shanghai started up, they were under 40%.
yeah, everything's
locally
been
sourced.
shipped in. Yeah,
So it was all being shipped in, a lot of it from Fremont. And
Mhm.
they had, of course, made the assertion that we would be vertically integrating this gigafactory from the others as well. And it would become something that could stand on its own. And of course, that gives them the flexibility that not only do you have plants in different regions of the world, but those plants are independent and those plants
Yes.
can source locally from around them. And in theory and in practice, actually perform better because the distances are shorter for suppliers to get them in the product they need to push out cars.
right. And that's one of the things that Elon kept harping on before he quit the conference calls is he kept talking about the force majeure. Force majeure. It's like if any one thing took out Fremont, it doesn't matter that the other plants exist; they would be down. And so now
Mhm.
they're only 5% down. If something takes out Fremont, like an earthquake, illness, or whatever, and Fremont goes down for a week, they don't lose a whole week of production if they do this right. But the benefit of them all running on the same plan with the same parts, essentially, is that if something does happen, where Fremont might have been supplying back and forth with Nevada, you can now do that from Texas. You can do it from China if you have to, but you do that one last because of costs. You can do it with Germany now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the longer your supply routes are, the more likely they are to have problems. That's simple math. If it's right next door, okay, well then some force majeure across the world is not going to cause a problem with that.
And that's why your iPhone is made all in China. And why they wouldn't save much money by bringing it to the States if they could, because if they move the assembly plant over, then you still got the guys who make the screws, the people who do the board finishing, the battery testing. It's all just in time Toyota style, and they all the parts arrive right when they're needed. And so this actually helps them out by being able to do that locally rather than from across the world. Because just in time, when there's a ship wedged in the canal the wrong direction, it'll make a mess.
Yeah,
Just in
it has
time
made a
becomes
mess.
way too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wonder what the last 5% is. So they started at 40. Last year they were at 90. This year they're at 95. What's the last 5% that's not made local around Shanghai?
I don't know what's holding them up.
SD boards.
100%.
Yeah. And is there a business opportunity there? If you're in Shanghai, find out what it is. You might
And
be able
make
to sell Tesla some parts. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Next story is just an update, and it's kind of surprising. Tesla has updated its weather data for
Yes.
range estimates. So they're now looking at more detailed weather information. I assume from the internet, from where the car is, its location, and they're routing that information into the car's estimate of range and how much charge it'll have when it rides at the next supercharger, which I think the three of us had already agreed was pretty accurate already.
It was very accurate. Yeah.
On our travels.
Yeah.
But it looks like
As long as you weren't towing.
the march of nines continues, looking for other ways to increase its ability to be a little bit more precise than what it is. So nice to see that they're, Tesla always seems to be working on many different fronts. They don't seem to give up on things. They just quietly work on them in the background. And if they can come up with an efficiency, even if it's small like this, they're going to implement it.
Yep. And the way
roll it out to everybody, not just next year's cars.
Right. Yeah, and the way they describe this, it makes it sound like, they've just got more accurate in their calculations because they already were tracking in elevation and average speed you would travel, what your AC was set to. But now they're tracking humidity, the wind. But it's not just an internal it's more accurate. If you start traveling into a headwind, and the same way that if you're traveling too fast and the car says, oh, you might want to break it down to 85 if you plan to make it there. Now it says, hey, this range estimate includes a 10-mile-an-hour headwind, or at least you're traveling into a headwind. I forget the exact verbiage of the screenshot I saw.
Cool.
So they let you know, hey, this is why, like in the case of me at Thanksgiving before on the trip where I wasn't cutting the line, I was running in a headwind, and it was in the cold. And the car kept saying, "Oh, you're not gonna make it." I'm like, "Oh, I'll be fine. I'll make it." And then I hit club static, and I rolled in to the last supercharger at 0 3 times.
Cutting it close.
Yes, because the weather report that I read on the way out the door had become invalid. The temperature had dropped 30 degrees from what they had anticipated, and the headwind. So I would have got a message saying, "Hey, we know you think you can make this, but had you considered this new wind data?" And I would have stopped and charged, because when it's frozen out, you don't, and you're below the charge level, and the car doesn't know where you're going. You don't get the preconditioning, and so I ended up costing myself a lot more time doing that in the wintertime.
Yeah.
But if you were at 0, you couldn't afford the electrons to condition.
This is true as well.
Yeah. 0 is not a lot of margin. SKC well knows.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
the only time that I've had it not be really great is when we had the bikes on the back.
Yeah, towing for me.
Yeah. So although when you have it in towing mode, it should know you're towing, and it should be able to recalculate.
It was better than I expected, but it was. I mean, I guess it doesn't know what you're towing.
That's true. Yeah. So yeah, now they need the camera to look at what you're towing, have some AI involved, figure it out. Wait after your first mile, recalculate.
Well, make some comments like, "Hey, get an aerodynamic trailer next time."
That part.
Because you're towing a brick.
Yes. Allegedly,
the app starts giving you ads for more aerodynamic trailers.
Allegedly, Ford will use AI, but it's for the Ford Lightning, it's not just AI like they want you to think. You have to manually say, "Hey, this is how long my trailer is." It'll do some weighing, but you got to kind of start it out. Say, "Hey, it's a 5,000-pound trailer," and it's really 5,200 pounds, buddy. And they'll look at other people who've towed something with the same parameters as you, and they'll do a little AI that way. But I think that with Tesla being a technology company, they could probably do this all automatically and do a better job of it than having to rely on you punching numbers in on a screen.
Yeah,
and some of that may come into play when the CyberTruck is launched, right? Because there's going to be a lot more people towing when that comes
right.
And they could totally shortcut with whatever they've learned internally with the Semi, and definitely everybody towing with the Model X and Model Y,
right?
And European Model 3.
This next story from Teslamanian was a kind of a note. It was talking about the Indonesian story that we spoke about last week. How Tesla's gone to Indonesia, has met with the Prime Minister, talking about the mineral of nickel, which Indonesia has quite a bit of, but they've locked it in. They want people to do some processing of that raw material into battery packs, so they get the benefit of jobs and other things as that raw material is turned into something that can be used in electric vehicles. So this article just was kind of outlining how the others in the auto industry are just buying off the shelf. They're not looking at a complete solution. What they're doing is saying, we're just going to sign a deal with LG or Cattle or whoever, maybe with a couple of them, and just require that they supply us X amount of batteries per year, and that's all we have to worry about. But Tesla knows that, and they've explained this to us, that there is a number of different raw materials that these batteries use, such as nickel, that is constrained and continues to be constrained. And they know that these other battery manufacturers can only make it if they have all the parts, the suppliers, to make the actual battery. If there is something that's even one component of that battery is not available or is constrained, they can't get enough of, that means that battery is not going to be made. So Tesla is out ahead of the game, looking to lock up deals with different minerals, different pieces of that battery that they know are currently or going to be constrained, and getting that ahead of game and locking that up, such as the Indonesian deal that we've spoken about. They are talking to a government here where they can say, listen, we need X amount of nickel. Yes, you want us to make the batteries in your country? All right, we'll do that for this. They're trading back and forth just so they can lock up that supply and know that they can have that supply of nickel for X amount of batteries that they require to put in vehicles. We saw this with the purchase of a mine in where was it? South Pacific, a French island that is one of the largest nickel suppliers in the world per capita. And we've seen it where they have made deals with mining companies in Ontario, in Minnesota. There's different groups that they're making deals with because they're trying to lock up supply because they know they're going to need these raw materials in order to push out the batteries on the scale that they're selling cars or expect to sell cars in the future. So very wise decision. And a lot of the other EV manufacturers are not playing that game at all because one, their volumes aren't all that big to begin with. And two, they're not thinking long game. They're just thinking, let's get by the quarter. Let's get by the quarter. And it's something that has not come to them. But as we spoke about in an early story today, Tesla's doing this zig and zag, trying to pick up these extra sales, trying to sell these extra vehicles, trying to produce these extra vehicles because they know that every vehicle matters to them. Whereas some of these others are just not participating in that same way.
And even the ones that are somewhat aware and realize they need to think somewhat past the next quarter, they still just buy parts and put them together. They make the frame and they make the engine, but a lot of them don't even make their electric motors. So they're learning that, hey, we should probably make more of this if we don't want to be affected by it. But their thinking still isn't spread out to the point where the company is actually able to act on those handful of individuals that get it.
Right.
Yeah.
It takes a big investment to do that, and right now they're just trying to start making EVs. So we
make cars. We don't. What do we need raw ore for?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We didn't mine steel.
Which is amazing when you consider like Ford did actually. They had their own timber, their own rubber. The rubber apparently didn't work, but they were trying to do what Elon is trying to do now, where they would raw materials in one side, Model Ts out the other side.
Now, this next story, Patrick, have you seen this about the app being updated about alerts for recalls? Did you see that story?
I did. In fact, I saw the story and then I went and updated my app, and so the mobile Tesla's app now includes recall information about your vehicle, and that's why I mentioned that. The 2017 through 2020 Model 3s all need this rear harness recall. And like we mentioned, it's not something that you have to have done immediately. If it's broken, you go get it fixed. And eventually Tesla will send out repair for all of them. But our 2018 Model 3 needs this same one. If you want to check yours, get the latest app, go under service, and then you can see active recalls. I was curious, since there's been a bunch of software recalls, if those were going to be listed there, and they're not. They just push out this, so they don't treat them. I mean, you still get, if you're required to by law, you get notified that recall has impacted you. I'm not sure why they make them sometimes even mail out letters to say you got a software update 3 weeks ago and you don't need to worry about this anymore. But now there's one more spot where you can check and make sure to see if you need to be going to the service center, scheduling service. You can always go into the app and check now. Where before in the past you had to go to a website and plunk in your VIN number. This is just so much more convenient.
Yeah, there was a update a few weeks ago that where my car actually pulled in the codes from the MCU screen and put them in there. I was like, well, why don't they do recalls this way? Apparently it was in the works.
Nice. Yeah, this is just another thing, like you mentioned, Mark. Tesla's always innovating, making things a little better, a little smarter on multiple fronts.
absolutely. Different teams working on different solutions. So
Right.
glad to see it. This was kind of interesting story as well. There is a group out there that keeps track of superchargers visited. I don't think it's the scientific number, but I think there's a number of different users that travel the country, and they like to keep track of the superchargers they visited over the time that they've owned a Tesla. One of them may be Casey Green. I know that I'm not keeping complete track, but I did start to formulate in my mind what my number was, because they put out the question, who has stopped at the most superchargers, and what that number is. So they, in this Tesla Canada article, they came up with the winner. Get this: having visited 1,600 superchargers in the time that they've owned their vehicle. So that is a large amount of supercharging, definitely. Now, of course, these could be the same superchargers; they could be new ones. It's just visits. So if you happen to live in an area where you don't have a garage and you supercharge every 3 days for the 7 years you've owned your vehicle, then you're going to rack up some good numbers there. But as I was saying, I was trying to figure out with my trips, and I got to believe that I'm under 80, like for the 4 years I've owned my vehicle, and the trips that I had, probably sitting around 80 visits, I would say, if not maybe a little bit less. But
So I'm at
that would be my guess.
I'm at 460 plugs at 149 different locations for a total of 10 days, 23 hours, and 17 minutes supercharging at 16.9 megawatt hours consumed.
You got it all.
I happen to know my exact number too, but it's a lot easier. For our Model 3, it has been supercharged once.
Nice.
Yep, we wanted to make sure supercharging worked, and it did. We're good.
And that's it. Hasn't seen a supercharger since.
Yep,
Right.
my average session is 34 minutes, and I would have spent $22.84 and 15 cents had I had to pay. I did pay an overage because I got stuck in Tesla time and I didn't hear the beep from the phone.
Oh, idle fees, gotcha.
Yeah, I paid 50 cents.
50 cents idle fee. Not bad.
It could have been worse.
I met a woman from Minnesota at a supercharger once. We got to talking about it, and she mentioned that she went to a Minnesota supercharger, plugged in, and fell asleep. Woke up 8 hours later, and she had a big bill. So,
I would call them on that one. And be like, hey, here's what happened.
She
I promise I'll try.
did,
Okay.
and they actually waived it for her.
Oh, good.
They said, this is it. This will never happen again. But they took her explanation and actually waived it. So that was good to hear.
Good.
I like that layout with me over under you, Casey. That less of the text pops up on me.
That's what I was telling
figure out
them.
a way to have a dummy fourth spot. Yeah.
Well,
finally,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Finally, there was IDRA, the company that makes the Giga Presses, started to announce that they were going to be putting on display a 9-ton unit at their headquarters. They were assembling it, and they were going to let the public or potential buyers come by and take a look at this 9-ton unit. And of course, the speculation immediately went to, is that for the Cybertruck? And they wouldn't answer the question, of course, because they're probably under some NDAs that they're not supposed to mention the name Tesla. But then those inventive people just immediately started to pester Elon, and he eventually replied, yep, that's ours. It's coming to us. So IDRA is actually assembling it, probably just to show people, as well as potential sales of the unit for future units. But they, as part of their, their installation, their people come and do it, and they will be, of course, taking it apart, then shipping it in components to Texas, where it will be assembled and be ready for the castings of the Cybertruck. So this is the biggest unit they've ever been produced. And in fact, after Tesla started to buy 6-ton units from IDRA, they had said to IDRA, well, how big can you build them? Because we want bigger vehicles, we want bigger casts, and they pushed Hydra to look into a 9-ton unit, which they did.
Yeah. So earlier, I thought they said that the one for the Cybertruck was going to be 8,000 ton. So that's why when IDRA said we have this 9,000 ton, there was all this confusion about, well, is that for Cybertruck or not? And I know that they're it's in, so 9,000 tons. A ton is 2,000 pounds. So that's 18 million pounds. That's just crazy. Yeah. 18 mega pounds.
Mega pounds, yeah.
Mega pounds.
So,
mega pounds for the Giga factory.
It wasn't much of a secret when they show you these pictures, and it's in Tesla colors. The only other possible chance to that was that all of these Chinese competitors are going with Giga castings now as well. VW showed off their first mega casting, and it was a rear assembly, and I was like, "Ooh, that's a good start."
Yep, there's a number of companies that have taken cues from Tesla, and they're starting to move on. Did you hear about the BMW switching to cylindrical batteries?
Yes.
No.
So that's another
cattle.
thing. Yeah. So guess who's getting 4680s in the future? There's going to be a number of Panasonic's, of course, making them as well. Cattle's going to be making them. LG's going to be making them. So it's interesting. Tesla has at the beginning, people were laughing at what Tesla was doing with certain things, and now they're following. So it's definitely a complete switch around. Obviously, Tesla bringing innovation to the industry that others were afraid to or unable to bring themselves.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, with that, gentlemen, great show. Patrick, any shout-outs for this evening?
Yeah, I want to touch on one more thing. So Tesla has added a new feature that I think is really cool, and it's small, but it's going to make a difference. And that is they now have blended braking. If you have a full battery, and it normally would have been doing regen, well, you guys have probably experienced this every once in a while. If the battery is cold or if you're fully charged, then you let off the accelerator pedal. It doesn't slow down. It just keeps coasting. And that's not the way it normally behaves. So that inconsistency is a problem. It's not about inconvenience of moving your foot over and touching the brake. That's not it. And if you want to have a mass market vehicle, I think you have to have it consistent. Us early adopters, it's a little different here and there. We talk about it, we know it. It's not a big deal. But you want mom and pop, what? It's different, crash, and So this, I think, is a great feature, and it's just another example of little improvements here and there, thinking things through to the nth degree, because you're not just like, oh my God, how do we build an EV and how do we get batteries and okay, let's throw them in there and ship it. It's no, we're in this refining stage where things get better all the time. Anyway, so that was my shout out to Tesla. Good job there, thinking, because this is a feature that I asked for, because my wife hated it, and she's like, okay, I'm never going to charge to full again, because when we leave our house, it's downhill, and if you leave full, then it's downhill and not regenning. And so, okay, good, we're not going to go to full. I didn't want you to go full anyway. I don't know why you kept sliding it over. So anyway,
we won't go there today.
Yes, yeah, please don't. Yeah, I didn't say that. Let's cut that out. I don't want to get in trouble. No, she'll never watch this. I'm fine.
Tesla is saving arguments and marriages left and right.
Yes. Right. Yes, this is saving my marriage. Thank you, Tesla. I don't know how many other spousal feuds that are going to avoid with this feature. So, okay, my normal shout-outs. I am with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. You can find us at oeva.org, and I blog occasionally at carswithcords.net. Right up there. Yep, there it is.
Very good, very good. Casey, what do you got for us?
Well, my daughter and I, we made a video with a friend on a Tesla accessory. I took a first day trip out in the with the FSDBeta 10.12.2. And I think I'm going to do a members-only audio like here's what happens while I'm making these videos. We'll see if the audio actually came out decent. There'll be a little short video, but I might hold that off till the next trip and see how it goes. And then I've got a bunch of other videos that are on the back burner, waiting on time to actually open up the computer without somebody crying for milk or change of a diaper. And you'll find that at youtube.com/CaseyGreen, KACEYGREEN. And every Sunday at 1:10 p.m. Eastern, I get on stream and we just kind of roll for a couple hours about what's going on in the world of EVs in general. Definitely, the Musk companies, but just more in general. That way we can cover some stuff and people pop in and out, and you can catch us there.
Very good. Always a great watch. Please subscribe to Casey's channel and visit Patrick at carswithcords.net as he puts up articles here and there about his experience. And I'm sure a spreadsheet is going to show up any day now.
Yes.
Yes, I just did one on how much I've saved the solar because a friend asked me, and I'm like, well, let me tell you.
Very good. Very good. We want to thank Lee Moon for the music we use every week. If you haven't already, please give us a like on this video. Give us a thumbs up. That helps us out. Press the subscribe if you haven't already. That helps us out as well. And join us next week when together we will find out what is happening in the Tesla life. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.